lest we forget. Representative from the Hill End Community Incorporated. We have a representative. Willow Grove Lions Club, and any other community member who'd like to lay a wreath. Willow Grove. Now call on Brodie and Milady to read the list of the fallen for Willow Grove. We've found Felicity, so Felicity wants to walk up and read out the list of the fallen from Hill End and Pumaya. Over here. For the Baw Baw Shire, Councillor Michael Laney. Now I'd like to call on Felicity Gramley to come forward and read out the list of the fallen from Hill End and Pumaya. We are camped in the Valley of the Pyramids, with two of the big pyramids in sight. They are enormous size, a wonderful piece of work. All the Australian troops except the Light Horse are camped out here. The Light Horse are camped on the other side of town. The New Zealanders are with them. The camp is like a huge town. It would be a good camp here were it not for the sand. There's not a single thing growing on the desert. It is nothing but a sandy waste, and it seems a pity to see miles and miles of country lying waste. We're not where we expected to land. After all, gracious me, we're having a glorious experience. All the restaurants and saloons have been renamed in Corio. Everywhere you will see the names such as the Australian Bar, the Kangaroo Cafe, the New Zealand Bar, and they all have special prices for the Australians and New Zealanders. After several months, the mood began to change. One soldier wrote home after a 15-hour march, "All the boys are sick of Egypt. It was all right at first, but things are pretty stale now." After 4.5 months of training near Corio, the men were eager for action. The Australians departed by ship for Gallipoli together with troops from New Zealand, Britain and France. The Australians landed at what became known as Anzac Cove on the 25th of April 1915. It was the start of the Gallipoli operation, where over 8,000 soldiers died in the 8 months from the 25th of April 1915 to the 8th of January 1916. Over 60,000 Australians died in the First World War. I'd now like to call on Roy Simpson to continue the story.
Thanks, Ron. Today I want to talk about beyond the Egyptian training grounds. I'd like to talk about the people listed on our cenotaph. At the time these young men went to war, the style of war was changing. The training manual of February 1917 marked the end of attacks made by lines of infantry and a few detached specialists. The platoon was divided into small headquarters and 4 sections. 1 and 2 trained grenade throwers and assistants. The second with a Lewis gunner and 9 assistants carrying 30 drums of ammunition. The third section comprised a sniper, scout and 9 riflemen. And the fourth section had 9 men with 4 rifle grenade launchers. The rifle and grenade sections were to advance in front of the Lewis gun and rifle grenade sections in 2 waves or in artillery formation, which covered an area of 91 metres wide and about 46 metres deep. With the 4 sections in a diamond pattern, the rifle section ahead, rifle, grenade and bombing sections to the sides, and the Lewis gun section behind until resistance was met. German defenders were to be suppressed by the fire from the Lewis gun and rifle grenade sections, while the riflemen and hand grenade sections moved forward, preferably by infiltrating around the flanks of the resistance to overwhelm the defenders from the rear. The theatre of war for our local lads during 1915-17 was Egypt, Gallipoli and the Western Front in France. The Western Front would prove to be a quagmire of atrocious conditions. More than 46,000 Australians died by the end of 1918 and 132,000 were wounded. The Western Front was also the blackest period in New Zealand's history, with 16,600 killed and 41,300 wounded. All of our local men that served in World War I lost their lives along the Western Front. 3 of the 6 were related. These all include Thomas Gascoigne Bloxham. He was a rifleman with the New Zealand Rifle Brigade, was killed in action 9th of November 1917. Buried at Boulogne Eastern Cemetery in Calais, France, aged 30, son of Mrs. Mary S. Webb and James Bloxham. Eli Hope Burgess, private, 57th Battalion, enlisted in Trafalgar on 28th of June 1916, embarked Melbourne on the 2nd of October 1916. His service was in the Western Front. Killed in action at Retaliation Farm, Zonnebeke, Belgium, on the 16th of October 1917. A colleague, New Zealand-born Sergeant William Baskerville, 29-year-old railway shunter who was with C Company and 57th Battalion, wrote to the Red Cross Information Bureau, "I saw these men, Burgess, Baker, Mitchell and Milgate, blown to pieces by a shell in a trench near the top of the ridge on Retaliation Farm on 18th of October. They were sitting in the middle of us, but after the shell burst, we could find nothing but small pieces of their bodies, not even their papers. There's no known grave for these men, but they are marked or commemorated on the Meningate Memorial in Ypres, Belgium. He was aged 23, 11 months, born at Hill End, son of Charles and Margaret Hope of Hill End. Lawrence David Cummins, private, 21st Battalion, enlisted Melbourne, 12 July 1915, embarked Melbourne on the 8th of May 1915. He served in Egypt, Gallipoli and the Western Front. sustained severe gunshot wounds to his chest during fighting at Bellacourt on the 29th of July 1916 and died of complications from these wounds on the 4th of May 1917. He's buried at Grevillers British Cemetery in France, aged 21, 2 months. Born at Hill End, son of Mrs. Roxana Mitchell Hill End and Lawrence Cummins. Educated at Hill End State School, the stepbrother of Private Matthew Mitchell, who served with the 22nd Battalion and also fought in the Somme engagement. He was awarded the 1914-15 Star. Herbert Vincent Doggerel, Private 24th Battalion, enlisted Trafalgar 12th of July 1915, embarked Melbourne on the 12th of July 1915. His service was Egypt, Gallipoli and the Western Front. Killed in action during fighting at Pozieres when he was hit in the head by shrapnel on the 27th of July 1916. Private Arthur Prime, who has been awarded the Military Medal, was an 18-year-old clerk from Castlemaine and informed the Red Cross Information Bureau. I saw Doggerel wounded in the head by shrapnel and put on a stretcher and taken to the dressing station, which was about 1.5 miles away on the road to Pozieres. It was reported to the commanding officer afterwards that Doggerel was missing, and it was believed that he had been, and the stretcher bearers must have been blown up or buried by a shell. He's buried at Gordon Dump Cemetery in France, aged 25 and 9 months. Born at Northcote, son of James and Mary Elizabeth Doggerel from Hill End, educated at the Hill End State School. He was also awarded the 1914-15 Star. Frank Hillman Hitchens, Private 57th Battalion, enlisted Trafalgar 22nd of February 1916, embarked Melbourne on the 8th of July 1916. Served in the Western Front, taken on strength of 59th Battalion 29 December 1916. Killed in action near Bourpamy on the 8th of February 1917. He's buried at Bancroft British Cemetery, France. Aged 20 years, 1 month. He was born at Pakenham, son of Martin and Julia Hitchens of Hill End, educated at the Hill End State School. William Frederick Paul, Private 37th Battalion, C Company, enlisted Trafalgar 11th of March 1916, embarked Melbourne on the 3rd of June 1916 and served in the Western Front. He was wounded in action on the 10th of December 1916, shrapnel wounds to the abdomen, right leg and under the right eye. He died at Field Ambulance number 10 on the 18th of December 1916. He's buried at Bongine Military Cemetery, Armentières, France, aged 19, 9 months. Born at Hill End, son of Francis John and Mary Ann Paul, Hill End, educated at the Hill End State School. Also listed on our cenotaph from World War II is Thomas Charles Rees. He was a stoker with the Royal Australian Navy on board HMAS Parramatta. He enlisted on the 4th of July 1940 and was killed in action on 27th of November 1941 off the coast of Tobruk when the vessel was sunk by a torpedo from a German submarine. Thanks very much.
We remember with thanksgiving those who made the supreme sacrifice for us in the time of war. We pray that the offering of their lives may not have been in vain. Today we dedicate ourselves to the cause of justice, freedom and peace, and for the wisdom and strength to build a better world.
Oh